Podcasts with CADR, the Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Mepham from the Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research. I'm here today with Elizabeth Zoe Shoemark-Sells. Elizabeth has been a nurse for 10 years, but after injury, she decided to leave nursing and start her career down a PhD path. So what she's currently working on is women's experience of urinary incontinence and chronic illness. So we'd love to hear a bit more about that. So Elizabeth, if you could tell us what brought you to this point and this subject, really.
Well, it's been a bit of a long journey to this path of research, one of my own ill health, and one of finding out about family members who I never knew experienced incontinence because it was hidden and it wasn't talked about. So when I was sitting in a hospital bed thinking, oh, woe is me, it's just happening to me, I then discovered that actually, no, it doesn't just happen to me. It happens to lots of other people. And even though as a nurse, I nursed women who had incontinence and who had chronic illness, it's different when you're a patient and you're on the other side, because you do just think, oh gosh, the world is going to end because I have to live this way of life now. So I suppose for the last 10 years since leaving nursing and having this journey of ill health, but actually being in education as well. And education saved me a little bit because it continued to allow my brain to work while my body was starting to, what I felt was starting to fail me. It allowed me to still be nursing, even though I wasn't physically actually nursing patients. I feel very much that the path that I'm on now is providing future nurses with the information that they will need to actually care for women in a much more holistic way, if that's the word to use. But yeah, it's been a journey of finding out about other women's experiences and not just thinking it's oh, woe is me.
Brilliant. And if you could tell us a little bit about your PhD and the title and what it means and what you're looking for.
Well, it comes off the back of my master's, and my master's was looking at stomas. So it was looking at fecal incontinence and the reason why women had stomas and body image and how this affected older women. So not younger women, but actually older women who perhaps they're a forgotten group. So when I started my PhD, again, I was looking at incontinence, and I thought, well, okay, I could stay with fecal incontinence, but actually in talking with women that were family members, actually women on the bus, friends in the pub, it was urinary incontinence that was the big one. And it was like, wow, this is just something that women aren't talking about. But actually, when you bring it up, they'll start going, oh yeah, I've got that. But when I started thinking about it in the context of older women, it was about how when I was nursing, we used to see a lot of women, not just women, but older people perhaps, who would come in to A&E, for example, who they had a fall, broken a hip, but a lot of it was because they were up going to the toilet, they'd forgotten to take their hypertensive medication, or they were avoiding taking it because they knew that it was going to make them need to go to the toilet. And then they were having drops of blood pressure and things. And then they were breaking their hips. And it was just this knock-on effect of how these things were working. But nobody was ever asking those questions of why are you not doing this? Or, why are you ending up with, urinary infections? Well, it's because I'm not drinking. And again, so when I was thinking about this and asking, friends, family members, and, my mother-in-law who has COPD, and, looking at her and how she lives, it was like, this is staring me in the face, this subject matter. So rather than look at, incontinence and seeing it as just one subject, was how it relates to chronic illness, and how perhaps if we can look at it and perhaps look at times where maybe it's the chronic illness that's causing the incontinence, and that if we do something to prevent the chronic illness becoming so bad, we could actually prevent the incontinence becoming so bad. So that's what I really want to be looking at, is that are there times across our lives where we could make those recommendations, those interventions, and educate young girls to prevent those illnesses occurring? Because we have young girls whose mums, their grandmothers, they've had conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure. They're familial, they'll follow down a family line. And actually, if we don't do anything about them, we're just going round in circles. And that's not to say that they're going to become incontinent, but if we don't do something, we're never going to know, are we? So it's all about health promotion and health prevention. And that's the way I see it. And it's just about trying to help, I suppose, the NHS not become, bogged down with, the burden that we are currently seeing. And that's not old people. It's just, the burden of multimorbidity and burden of chronic illness that it does have as a financial burden on the health service. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
And it seems at the moment that, or at least in my eyes, it's a bit of a taboo subject. People don't talk about it, I mean, after giving birth, that's a huge part of that. And
yeah,
people don't really talk about it. I don't know if you've ever tried jumping on the trampoline after you've had a child. It's not safe.
It is definitely one of those subjects that, what goes on below the waist does not get spoken about. And that's one of the things that I want to try and demystify, is that, if you are incontinent, then you need to go and see the doctor. Women are buying 10 pads, always extra long, and there's no health warning on them that says, if you've been suffering from incontinence for 3 months or more, then you should be seen by a GP or your practice nurse. And there should be something on these products that actually says, look, you need to go and speak to someone. And if you've got a condition like high blood pressure and you're on a water tablet, and, if you think about the woman who had 3 babies, delivered one that was perhaps 10 pounds, was in labour for, 36 hours, she may never have been incontinent after it, but that long-term effect of actually delivering that baby, maybe having sat down during her job all her life, never done much exercise, then had high blood pressure later in life and being on tablets, you may be incontinent. But the thing is, I'm saying these are all maybes. I can't prove these things, but the point is, if you're then not going to the GP and asking the question, is this because I had a big baby, or is it because of my high blood pressure? But all you're doing is going to the local chemist and buying pads and hiding it. It just, as women, continues to can't be this taboo subject that we just bold and say, well, this is what's the matter with me, and I'm going to do something about it. Because we're strong women, and we should be doing these things, because nobody else is going to do it for us.
So I think what we're looking at really is, more people knowing about it, knowing that it's not embarrassing, it does happen, and starting out as sort of saying, well, what are the preventative measures that, yes, the person may have had 3 babies, and they're not having any accidents or anything like that now, but it could potentially happen in the future. So what's the preventative measure? And are there currently any preventative measures that, our nurses know about?
Well, there's pelvic floor exercises, and we know that doing Kegel exercises, they're brilliant. So obviously, working after you've had pregnancies, during your pregnancy, doing your pelvic floor exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, not smoking, working at a desk, those type of things, they're not great. But actually then also on the flip side, if you're standing all day and doing a job where you're on your feet, that's not great, because if you're not actually engaging your pelvic floor, it's not going to actually be of any benefit. So it is about being aware of the risk factors and actually being aware of the preventative measures that you can, do to balance them out. But the one thing I think that is really, really important is actually starting young. So in our young girls, if we are educating them that, your pelvic floor is really, really important. So you need to be sitting up, right? You need to be drinking properly. You need to be engaging that pelvic floor. I know that there's a lot around the use of communal toilets in schools where boys and girls are mixing, and lots of girls, they don't want to do that. They don't want to go and, go to the toilet when the boys are there. So they're holding their bladders. So holding it for an excessive amount of time, it irritates the bladder. They're at risk of getting bladder infections. And that, over a long period of time can actually do damage, especially if you're not drinking. And young girls then, because they can't go to the toilet in school, they're not drinking, and they're at risk of getting, infections. So I think it's really important that, we start young and it continues right across the life course, this education and preventative awareness. So, when we go for our smears, we have the nurse saying to us, how is everything? How when they check our blood pressures, they ask, how's the waterworks? Because those things aren't being done. We don't have well women clinics anymore, and that's a shame. It's a loss. It's a loss that I think, 10 minutes, a 10-minute question that, could actually be the prevention of somebody ending up in hospital in the future with an infection that costs the NHS thousands to look after. That's the way I look at it.
And I think from personal experience having smears, I have never been asked about my ward work. No. I don't think anyone, in fact, I've never really thought about it until, I had a baby, or until I saw your presentation that you did a few months ago at Swansea University, which also is available on the CADR YouTube channel. So if anyone would like to go and watch that, it's a really great, informative piece that tells us more about Elizabeth's work. So whilst we're on that, Elizabeth, tell us about the study that you're doing now, because I know you've just passed ethical approval and you are looking for participants. So tell us a bit about what you want.
Yes, well, I am looking for 30 women who are aged over 50, who have experienced incontinence for longer than 6 months, that have a chronic illness. I'm not particular, I don't mind. So whatever you've got, I'm quite happy to have it all. And I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to know how this has affected you, your experiences of the health service, your GP, your experiences at home. You know, what have the challenges been like, you know, during COVID, and just how's this made you feel? You know, just your story. That's what I want. And ultimately then, I'd like for these 30 women to come together at the end of me interviewing them separately, to come together and make recommendations based on their experiences, based on their shared and unique experiences. Make an education program for young girls, make recommendations for health policy, and that's in particular when we think about the women's health plan that, you know, is being put in place right now. So this PhD is something that will actively make a difference. It'll make a difference to the way our health service delivers women's health care. And that's what I'm so proud about. So if I can get 30 women who are willing to share, I know it's very private, and I will treat it with the utmost of confidence and respect. And yeah, I would just be really grateful if you wanted to come and talk to me.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So I think what we're going to do when we publish this on the website, we'll put Elizabeth's contact details on there so you can get in touch. So we would really love for you to come and help make change in Wales. You know, this is going to be a significant piece of work. And like Elizabeth says, hopefully it will, you know, impact the women's well-being of Wales and go in front of policymakers and really make a change. And that's what we do at CADR. We do research in order to make positive change for everyone across the life course, but particularly older people. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us today. And hopefully maybe this time next year we'll do another podcast with the findings and see where everything's at. It'll be really interesting to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, that's what's exciting. It's exciting to think that I'm either going to be proven right that, you know, women have not had it great, but that, you know, women's voices can shout loud, and together we can make a difference and make a change. And this is a personal project, but it's now become a very public project now that I want to share with everyone. So yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Thank you so much.